Hey everybody, welcome to Paratruth Radio right here on Blog Talk Radio. My name's Justin. Just wanted to give a shout out to everybody out there today who's listening in. If you're listening in, check us out on Facebook, check us out on Twitter. You can hit the like button and the follow buttons. Also, we have an Indiegogo campaign going on to raise funds to improve the show. So I do have to give a shout out to Debbie Skurback and Geraldine Kozak. I hope I pronounced Geraldine's name correctly. They have already donated to our campaign. Also, I am including the Indiegogo link in our chat room. If you want to get in there, you can get into our chat room to ask us questions or questions to our guest, as well as call into our guest line, which is 914-205-5558. Tonight we have on Vaughn Braschler, author of Confessions of a Reluctant Ghost Hunter. Vaughn, are you with us?
Yes, I am, Justin. Hi.
Hello. All right. So for those of our listeners who haven't heard of you or heard of the book, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourselves?
Yes, well, I've written a few other books, but this is my first book on ghosts, and it's all kind of a first-person story based on my own experience as a ghost hunter. I don't even like that term. I was trained several years ago by a woman who was very good at going in and deghosting houses, her term. And she would go in and she'd try to find someone who had recently passed on and encourage them to move on, which should be a natural thing, but sometimes doesn't work fully for some people. And she trained me to do this because I'd always been somewhat psychic, and I'd always been able to see or hear or somehow sense ghosts when they would want to be known. And she said, well, your teacher, who was her employer, the psychic author Louis Gittner, on Orcas Island, he suggested that I talk to you. He must have thought that this was something you wanted to hear. And so I spent a couple of days with her, and got some training, and she said, now you're ready to go deghost houses if you want to. It's up to you. And I said, I really am not interested in that, but I've never known what to say to them if I see them. So I told Helen, if a neighbor or someone I cared about had a problem with the haunted house, I would offer to go in and deghost the house. And I was extremely surprised later on when I actually started doing this that they weren't all deceased people. They weren't all sweet ladies waiting to be encouraged to move on. There was a much darker element out there. Not all haunted houses are haunted by deceased people, and they're not all safe. So I decided I would warn people that these shows you're seeing on television and these movies and these books that glorify stalking ghosts through houses and chasing them with equipment and provoking them to come out of hiding, it's crazy. It's dangerous.
Yeah. All right. Well, we also have Eric with us. Eric, welcome back.
Yeah, thanks for having me back, of course, because I'm co-host, so.
Hi, Eric.
Man, hello, how are you?
Fine, thanks.
Oh.
Yeah, me and Eric had Go ahead, Eric.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I'm having a heck of some difficulties here with all this tech stuff this past couple of weeks here.
Well, we're busy people.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Me and Eric had an investigation team back years ago, and people on TV and in the movies glorify it. 2008, 2009, right, Eric?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and it's not something just to be trifled with, and people try to do it themselves or God help me, use Ouija boards and other things to try and do these things, and it's not fun and it's not easy, which you've already alliterated on. Are there any hauntings that stick in your mind that were worse than others?
Yeah. The hauntings that I experienced before I learned to ghost houses were easy. The ones I learned after I was trained to do it were hard, and I don't know why that is, other than the universe decided this kid needed some tough karma lessons, and they came a coming. I mean, my teacher, bless her heart, her work is dealing with apparently the legitimate case of the ghost who really did just recently pass on, and it probably was someone that the present occupants knew, or someone who lived in the house before them, and they're just reluctant to leave, or they're confused, or they have some unfinished business, or some legitimate reason, and they just need a little encouragement. They need to be found and gently communicated with, and she was very, very good at that. So the first ghost that I had ever met, not knowing what to do or say, they would people that would be pacing in the house, or I would hear footsteps, or I would see somebody suddenly pop in front of me, and I'd say, "What are you doing?" And I found that very often they were as surprised to see me as I was to see them, because this little narrow a crack between the worlds that they poke through is not always easily broached, apparently, and sometimes they just slip through, and there they are, and there you are, and they say, "Can you see me?" And I could say, "Yeah, I can see you." But I say, "Go away," and they'd go away. They were just like, it's like, I don't know if you ever stumbled upon a creature in the woods or a snake or something, and it's like you say "boo" and they run because they're more scared of you than you are of them.
Yeah.
And I found that to be true of ghosts, and they often don't want to be found. They're confused. So, I mean, I had experience with a haunted hotel that I stayed in, which was just kind of fun. It was just it was a practical joker, and it had been there for years and years and years. And I've had like a lot of your listeners, my pets that would pass on, and for a while after they died, they would not fully leave, and they would just pounce on my bed, and I'd feel them pouncing on the bed, or I'd hear them, psychically, and see them psychically. They weren't physically there; they were a spirit. And then dear Helen, she teaches me how to confront ghosts and ask them to move on. And so the worst one I had was a mobile home in the woods on Mount Hood in Oregon, near rhododendron, and it was a single wide mobile home that had been there in this old growth, dense forest, accessible only by gravel logging trails. And the owner of it apparently couldn't rent it, couldn't lease it, couldn't sell it, and so he found this family, this man and woman and their teenage daughter and their little dog that agreed to stay there and take care of the place, kind of so it wouldn't get all run down and
right.
So that it was free housing. So they stayed there, and they quickly learned that the place was somehow haunted. There was some kind of a spirit, and it didn't want to go, and it wasn't somebody's dead Aunt Ruth, and it really was an angry, dangerous spirit, and that was the very worst. That was deadly. That's the one that ended it for me. That's it.
Yeah.
The book is primarily about that, but there's a lot of other ghost stories. That was the worst.
Now, coming across that particular one, would you classify that as demonic in nature or something different?
Yeah, I would say it was demonic. Now, when I finally did find the spirit, which was hiding and appearing to different people in different ways at different times, it was hiding in the trailer, and it didn't want me to find it. It only wanted to speak with the young girl who lived there. It was strangling the adults in their sleep. When I finally found it, it was not at all the way the girl had seen it. It was it would change form, and I think this is important to know that the spirits, they really don't have feet to make footsteps. They don't have a voice to scream. If you see them, it's because they want to be seen. In short, they're projecting. It's thought projection, and it's conscious energy that they're projecting to you, and they want you to see something or hear something, and that's all you hear. So I saw something that, when I did stumble on it, that was really quite dark and really quite demonic, and I've not quite put my finger on what it is. I have a couple of guesses, but it was something that was unearthly. It had never been a human being, I would say. Although it would occasionally appear to the girl who lived there as a little girl with curls, maybe 8, 9, 10 years old.
And was this the first one that you had ever come across?
Well, not exactly. I had an experience that was much more personal than that in my own home, and I refer to those as the floating heads because they would appear in the skylight, and I would lie on the floor and look up at the sky, and it had something to do with a missing girl that had come up there and up to the forest looking for something she couldn't find in the city. And her sister came looking for her, and she disappeared, and she went to a chapel in the woods, and she was never seen from again. And she subsequently turned up dead, although she would call her sister long after she was apparently dead. There were, spirit communications involved. But in investigating the people who operated the chapel in the woods, which may or may not have been the mysterious floating heads, coincidentally, I would see, after looking into them, I would see something in the skylight above, and I would ignore it, as I often did before ever my training with Helen started. I would just say, it's just not there, or it's there, but I don't care. I mean, that's my attitude toward UFOs. I mean, I see them, but they don't bother me, and I don't bother them, and that I don't care. I just walk away, and it's like, I don't want to pick a fight, so you walk around them. So now I tell people, walk around ghosts. If you can't deal with them, just walk around them. So that's what I did, and so other people would come in the house, and they would look up at the skylight, and they go, there are people looking through the skylight, and I'd say, no, that's highly unlikely, don't you think? It's like maybe I gave you too much wine for dinner. I don't know, So then I was then apparently that they weren't getting the effect they wanted. So I would go to sleep at night. Well, before then things would disappear in the house, and then I would tear the house apart, and then it would appear exactly where I left it on the kitchen table, whatever it was. Things would just disappear and reappear. I mean, somebody was messing with me, and there were a lot of moving of things in the house. And then these, I think these spirits really wanted to mess with me, and they, I would go to sleep at night, and the things that were in my bedroom in the drawers, like my clothes and socks and things, I'd wake up and it would be on the floor, and the things that were on the floor were all stuffed in the drawers, and they were half open and half closed, and and so like somebody had come in and just rearranged things haphazardly, and I would pretend like I didn't notice, and I would just go into the bathroom and shave and brush my teeth and come out, and it would all be put back together. And I'm saying, like, this has got to end. This
Right.
This is getting ugly. Yeah. So, yeah, it was a fun time up there in the mountains. But often things in the mountains are a little bit, spirit filled. There were a lot of spirits on the mountain, and they weren't all bad. There were good ones, but I also encountered some bad ones.
Okay. All right. I think we'll take our first break. Folks, you're listening to Paratruth Radio right here on Blog Talk Radio. We're talking to Von Braschler about his book, Confessions of a Reluctant Ghost Hunter, and we will be back in just a few minutes.
Are you ready? Are you prepared? What if some cataclysmic event shook your every foundation? Would you and your family know what to do? My name is Jacqueline Druga, host of the Apocalypse Dinner Show. Join me every Thursday evening, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Prepper Broadcasting Network. PrepperBroadcasting.com. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're there for your survival needs.
Ladies and gentlemen, sublimely elegant here as always, and you are listening to Paratruth Radio.
All right, folks, welcome back to Paratruth Radio. I'm Justin.
And I'm Eric.
And you're listening to us right here on Blog Talk Radio. I do encourage you guys, if you have any questions for our guests or ourselves, you can call into our guest line, 914-205-5558. You can also just hop into our chat room and ask questions there or just chat us up. We're always happy to engage in conversations. I do also encourage you guys to check us out on Facebook and on Twitter. Hit that like button and hit that follow button. And also check out our Indiegogo campaign, which the link is in the chat room if you want to check that out. We're talking to Von Braschler, author of Confessions of a Reluctant Ghost Hunter. Von, you still with us?
Yes, I am.
All right, Eric, why don't you take it away?
All right. One of the things I noticed in your book, and you had just mentioned a little bit earlier here on air, is the fact that spirits don't have feet. And so they're not walking across the ground. The footsteps we hear are manipulated in some way. Another thing you mentioned in your book is how they're deceitful, manipulative, so on and so forth.
Yep.
Many people see human spirits, and I'm personally, I have a Christian worldview. I don't believe that human spirits walk on earth. I believe only demons do, and they manipulate everything. But one of the things that are very interesting to me is the fact that everyone sees spirits wearing clothes.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
Yeah,
you know, and as far as I'm concerned,
good point.
As far as I'm concerned, any spirit walking around would be naked or have really no physical form whatsoever, which is very interesting to me. What is your take on just that right there?
Yeah, they project what they project their conscious thought forms, and their thought forms would be that they are wearing the clothes that they feel right to wear. It might be clothes that were of the period. So if you were to see a ghost, a legitimate ghost, let's say, that had lived in the 1890s, they're not going to be wearing today's clothing. They're going to be wearing 1890s clothing most likely, and you see them that way because they're projecting that in their and we see them that way. But you don't see them so much with your eyes. I mean, you can catch them sometimes out of the corner of your eye, but ordinarily we see them like a mental image. It's like it's really hard to tell people that have never had psychic imagery, but it's like you just have a something you see inside your head. It's like the third eye. Sometimes it's called the third eye, and so you see it in your head. Or you hear it in your head, and sometimes it seems like it's so clear and so audible that you hear it, and then when you break it down, it wasn't your ears that heard it, So back to the fact that they have no feet, they are phantasms. They are an energy body, is what they are, and it's conscious thoughts. They no longer have a physical form. So your premise that they may all be non-human things or demonic. It is possible, but I think when you talk to a number of people, and I've written here on the first person. These are my own experiences, so I only have my own experience. But you talk to a lot of people, and they will typically, very often, after a relative or close, dear loved one passes away, that person will pass before their gaze. Let's say they'll see them in their mind's eye, or they might even hear them speak to them. And it's very typical that when a pet dies, that you'll think you see it, or you think you feel it on your bed for a couple of days. And so my take on this, just my take on it, who knows, is that some living people and some living creatures on this earth, when they pass, yes, their spirit ascends. I totally agree with that, and their higher self ascends, their essential life force, their soul, their higher spirit, if you will. But sometimes parts of them remain, and it's very, very hollow. And it's for those who want to talk to the dead, it's a very unproductive, disappointing thing to know that you're talking to the shell of the person. You're talking to the lower elements of it. It's their emotional body, their lower mental body. It's their personality, their empty personality. It's some of their memories, dimly held. It's maybe their astral body. It's not their higher life. The soul never gets trapped here. I mean, I believe that too. But I do think there are unfortunate cases how people and other living creatures here will die, but they don't fully leave. They don't fully move on spiritually. There's just an element of them left here. I mean, their soul, their spirit goes on, their higher life force goes on, but some little kind of remnant of them stays behind. And the role then of the ghost hunter, or those who would go and try to help them, as someone who deghosts houses, like my friend Helen, my teacher Helen, would be simply to assure them that they need to fully move on, that the rest of them is gone, and the reason that they're so disoriented is they're not fully there. It's just a remnant of them. Now, I believe this in part because of the shamanic tradition and the tradition in psychotherapy to address the fragments, spirit fragments. In shamanic circles, it's sometimes called shamanic soul retrieval, which I think is a misnomer all the way around. It's not your soul; it's part of your spirit, your lower spirit, and you're not really retrieving it because it's just kind of like it's always part of you, but you've kind of lost it. So some people, when they have an accident, part of them is there, or someone takes it away, and it's just no one can take your soul away. I mean, I totally agree with that. Mm-hmm. Your essential life force, your divine spark, your higher self, that no one can take that away. But there's some little element left behind, and that's what we're. So I always think of in a case of a true ghost assist, a ghost here being someone who had lived on this earth and died, is that you're helping the remnant of them also move on. Mm-hmm. So I say then that these people haven't fully moved on. So what's left behind is just the angst. So they're troubled, and they don't have the wherewithal to help themselves as a rule, and they're locked. They're locked in time and space. They being the little fragment, the little bit of them that's left behind. So when you call on ghosts, let's say those who do stupid things, as Justin said, like play with a Ouija board, you're just calling on the dim shell of that creature. If it's your dead Aunt Ruth, or you want to ask your maiden aunt where she left the silver brooch, or you want to ask your grandmother, am I forgiven? So you're not really talking with the greater part of them, which has moved on. You're just, in some cases, a little bit of them stays behind. Now, there are many other spirits out there, in addition to what occasionally might be the ghost fragment of a person who hasn't fully moved on, and it's troubling. I mean, not all troubling. Some are angels. There's the good news. I mean, some spirits are, you walk into a room, there's probably going to be an angel. It's probably yours, and there are going to be other spirits, So they're not all bad, but many slip into this world. They kind of like slip into this world, and they're like pranksters, and they're manipulative, and they act what you or I might call demonic, and some might even be demonic, because he quacks like a duck. It's a duck, So
right.
Let's call him a demon. The thing I saw in the trailer was probably like a forest gnome, but I'd just be happy calling it a demon because it was so demonic. So, I mean, I largely agree with your premise there.
And I'm going to actually jump back just a little bit there. Right before you were fully answering that question, you're talking about when someone passes on or an animal passes on, sometimes we feel them laying on the bed or we hear them and stuff like that. I mean, I'm not going to lie. That's something I've heard in the past as well, especially when my dog Angus died. And for several days after he was already gone, I still heard him barking.
Yeah.
Now, you can agree or disagree with me, but the way this is just my thought. we are around some people or some animals so long that we become accustomed to hearing their voice or hearing them walk around and stuff like that, or feeling that, the bed sink down or feel that pressure. Who's to say that it's really their spirit that we hear after they pass on, and not just our own mind, bringing things forth on its own? Because our mind is very powerful.
Something will prompt it, like the memory that they were once on the bed, and it flashes in front of you, and so you kind of fill it in, the association, like you smell something, and, that's the smell you smelled from your dog or something.
Right.
I think of that all the time when I see a ghost. It's like, and it's comforting to think I'm just making it up, But I don't know where reality begins and ends anymore. I used to think I know. I'm not a philosopher. I just know what. I believe in this thing called moving reality. If it becomes part of the way I'm dealing with things and I'm perceiving things, I'm not going to try to. It's just part of. I just accept it. I just take it. So yeah. Very, very, very often it could be a mix. Maybe sometimes the dog does come and visit you for a while after it passes, and it's to say goodbye. I always think that the only legitimate ghost contact we should participate with or acknowledge is when they come and say goodbye. But that window of coming to say goodbye before they pass on is usually, hopefully, ideally, short, and then they do move on, because pretty soon the dog doesn't bark, and it's gone. So I know when my father passed on, he came and visited me. It was really funny because he told me a joke, and that was so out of character with him that I knew, it somehow was real. It was nothing that I ever had heard him say before. It was like he was trying to convince me that he wasn't dead, that somebody else had died. It was a great hoax that was played on me, and I must have been imagining the whole thing. And I said, "No," and he said, "Gotcha," and he disappeared. It was pretty funny. It's like, I don't mind the ghosts coming and saying goodbye that way. And usually they come by when my friend, I'm writing on a book now called Moving in the Light, which will be on death transition, how people die, and how it's hard to move from this world to the next world for some people. That is to say, when they go through, let's say, a prolonged illness and they're looking at hospice and they're actually thinking about dying, not an accident or something, just, they have time to ponder it, how it's hard to prepare, sometimes to die, to think you're not going to be here and you're going to be somewhere else, because it's the uncertainty, like you're going to go somewhere else, and based on your belief, you think, well, it could be much better, it's like, when my body's worn out, I obviously have to go. But where, and will I get lost, and will it be difficult, and will it be scary, and, the journey from here to there, We have all kinds of legends, crossing the river Styx, and the Valkyries, and the Viking funeral pyres, So the crossover to death can be very difficult for some people. So, but I think a lot of people will just come by and say goodbye, and then they'll pass on.
So now, through all of your different ghost hunting, what couple or few that you did you ever do any recordings like what you see on shows, or what we would have done through our investigations?
Well, the closest would be on film, because, and I didn't set up a camera, a trip camera, or a strobe or something like that. But I would sometimes, when I would I had a darkroom. I worked much of my life as a journalist in print primarily, and for newspapers primarily, and I would work in the darkroom, and sometimes I would get interested in just doing photography on my own, because I kind of enjoyed doing darkroom work. So one of the experiences I had with the Kirlian camera was that when I would be developing film, and I also saw this developing like, regular photography, was that when I'm processing the film and putting it in the tray, and I think a lot of people who have actually developed film the old way in a tray might relate to this, that strange things appear on the film for a short amount of time. It would look like figures, and then they become something else. Now, yeah, that could be just, people look at clouds and they see, a bucking bronco or something.
Right.
It's possible, but I've been in a dark room with three people, and we all see the same thing. We've also been in a dark room, and we see a spirit there. So, I think that they like to, on occasion, surprise us with, not by stepping forward and being photographed when we set up something for them in a test, but they like to call us on the phone. A lot of people have received phone calls from spirits or spirits claiming to be someone. Who knows? And radio. They like electronic things. Which is like, it's not so hard to understand when you think that the phantasm is probably like bioplasmic, electronic in substance. It's some kind of electromagnetic form. I mean, everything in the universe is electromagnetic. So I'm thinking that the spirit body, the ectoplasm, is something like that. We'll figure this out scientifically someday.
Right. Well, I mean, most
ghost
hunters, most ghost hunters use an EMF reader. So to think that we are some type of electromagnetic frequency is feasible because the natural body puts off so much electromagnetic energy that it could possibly be more than that afterwards as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, they like to somehow imprint themselves on things. They like to make imprints, but they always, what always makes me a little bit skeptical about using these devices is that they'll put on it whatever they want because they don't really have a form. So they're going to project whatever they want you to see and whenever they want you to see it. I mean, it's really odd sometimes. The ghost is probably always in the haunted building. They probably never leave the haunted building, but sometimes they make an appearance and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they make themselves known, sometimes they don't. Sometimes one person can hear them and another person can't. I mean, it's really interesting. It is. I mean, they have a lot of control over it.
Yeah. All right. I think we're going to take our next break here, folks. You're listening to Paratruth Radio right here on Blog Talk Radio. We're talking to Vaughn Braschler, author of Confessions of a Reluctant Ghost Hunter, and we will be back in just a few minutes.
Hello, everybody. Sublimely Elegant here, as always, and guess what? I know you. Well, no, we've never met, but I do know you. I know you love Minecraft. I know you love the internet. Now, I also happen to know you love colorful language. So instead of moping around all day, why don't you head on over to my channel and satiate your deepest needs. YouTube.com/Sublimely Elegant.
What you late afternoon, time to get something to eat. Fork and a spoon, everything's picnic complete. Bottle of wine, no one's expected to try. Plenty of time, busy just being alive. We're right on time, we're all in line. Pleasure playing, seek and find. It's happening, the things unseen. Open up, release your mind.
All right, folks, welcome back to Paratruth Radio right here on Blog Talk Radio. I'm Justin. And we're talking to Vaughn Braschler, author of Confessions of a Reluctant Ghost Hunter. Vaughn, you still with us?
Yes, I am.
All right.
There's a delay. There's an odd delay here with my mic. So Vaughn, one of the things that we've been discussing is the manipulation of spirits and stuff like that. One of the things that you had mentioned is spirits coming to you, as opposed to us using a Ouija board and so on and so forth. There's a big difference between contacting a spirit on your own behalf and then the spirit coming to you. And according to the Bible, which, as I said, Christian worldview, the Lord tells us not to contact the dead. Let the dead stay dead. You know, there shouldn't be any communication
Pretty
between
good advice, I think.
Right, between us and them. I agree. I completely agree. Now, me and Justin were saying earlier, we've done investigations in the past. We had our own paranormal investigative team, and we've gone to a number of different places, both indoor and outdoor. And we have caught some pretty significant evidence, voice-wise. Not many pictures, if I'm not mistaken. We haven't caught many pictures. But we do get a lot of, but we've gotten a lot of EVPs, things saying our names, things just, saying random things that we don't even, it's just random, Sure. One of the most, not common, but one big one that I remember offhand, we were at this bowling alley one night, and me and an acquaintance of ours were down in the basement of this bowling alley asking questions. And instead of answering a question, we heard a really loud bang from the other room behind us. And when you look at investigations and evidence, it's very common that spirits will create a really loud bang, or several bangs, or knocks, and so on and so forth.
They'll close doors or something.
Exactly.
Yep.
Now, a lot of people think that this is the spirit's way of connecting with the living. It's their way of talking. Where I'm thinking it's more possibly they're using it as a fear factor to try to scare us away or to get our mind.
I agree with you.
Oh, all right. So why do you think that is?
Well, I think that stalking ghosts is a bad idea.
Okay.
First of all, I agree that you should respect the dead and let them move on. You shouldn't be calling them. It's sad. I mean, if you can help them move on, but you shouldn't be, trying to open up dialogue and chit-chat with the dead. Respect the dead. I mean, most religious traditions do that, But we see people that are stalking ghosts. And now when we get beyond dear dead Aunt Ruth and what else might be out there, or just someone who's been dead a long time, and part of them remains behind, and by the way, there are like ghost families. Well, someone will die. There'll be ghosts of different generations even, because they'll glom onto somebody.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea is that I'm trying to say is that they are telling you to go away. Very often what they tell me is go away. We're bugging them, and provoking them is always a bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
Because, the one thing I tried to say in the book was, provoking ghosts, respecting the dead is a good idea. Provoking spirits is a really bad idea. Chasing them around and trying to, get them to say boo on, or take their picture is a really horrible idea. And the main reason it's a horrible idea is that it's unsafe, because if you provoke them, well, I used to tell people that, they have no physical body and they can't physically hurt you. I no longer tell people that because I know differently. I've seen buildings burned down. I've seen, deaths and horrible things done by provoked spirits. And if you are in a haunted situation and you can't, get rid of it, or convince it to move, which would be nice, or you can't live with it, or seek some kind of harmonious, you stay on that side of the rafters in the attic and I'll stay down here, you don't bother me, I don't bother you, then you just have to either walk around it or leave.
Right.
Because provoking it, or trying to get it to talk with you, is probably not what it wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, in my experience with some of them, it just makes them very, very angry. A lot of them don't want to be noticed. A lot of them don't want to be contacted, don't want to be chased, don't want to be photographed, recorded, and it just makes them very, very upset. And they are potentially dangerous.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And, and Justin and I have encountered those particular dangers on several occasions.
Yeah.
And, I think back to some of the oldest stories, and of course we're going biblical here, the story of Job. We think of the devil, we think of, Satan and demons and how much trouble they put Job through in regards to illness, in regards to killing his family, his livestock, taking everything away from him. That right there is just an account of what spirits are or could be capable of doing. There's also a story about an evil spirit going to Saul, King Saul, and tormenting him for a significant amount of time. And it just amazes me that so many people disregard what the Bible says regarding these things, and then they go out and provoke creatures, and then they complain when something follows them home, or something starts giving them nightmares or waking them up at night,
They say, God protect me, and it's like, he said, don't mess with these things. Then you want the protection. When it's
you're crying wolf, basically.
Yeah, after you've fallen down the stairs and you can't get up, then you want your help. Well, it's a little too late when you can't get up.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Well, I'm glad to see that there is somebody that actually agrees on the same page as Eric does. All right, Vaughn, we are getting close to the end here, so I wanted to give you a chance to let everybody know where they can find you and find your book and your upcoming book as well.
Yeah, sure. Well, they're at bookstores, of course, and if you can't find my books, you can always ask them, because bookstores love to order books. They want to know what you want to read. I always used to go in bookstores and say, "Oh, they don't have it," and I just walk out. It's like, they would love you to say, "Could you get this?" I'm always saying, "Can you get me the newest Grisham?" It's like, yeah. It's like, keep running out. But yeah. So you can get it online, different places. Barnes and Noble online, Amazon online carries it, and unlike my other stories, this is something I just felt compelled to write, because I've been suppressing these feelings for so many years. It was so... I wasn't the one whose house was always haunted in these stories, but going through and dealing with these situations, trying to help my friends and neighbors, just kind of left some real baggage with me, and I just suppressed it. That's what I do. I just suppress. And And I just sat on this for many years, and I realized that I just had to get it out, and it feels good just to get it out. So, yeah, I mean, they're my own stories, and I don't make up things. I'm a journalist, so these are things I couldn't put in the newspaper, the unsolved mysteries.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. It was a pleasure and honor, and maybe we'll be able to get you on again when your next book comes out.
That'd be fun. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good night,
Bye,
sir.
Eric.
Good night.
Good night.
All right, folks. That was Vaughn Braschler, author of Confessions of a Reluctant Ghost Hunter. Next week, we are going to be talking about Chupacabra, something that I don't think either Eric or...
Sorry. I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to start the show like, "Hi, everybody, welcome to Paratruth Radio." But with a guest on, I didn't think it'd be a...
And then I could come on back, so I fired Justin. Now we have an 80-year-old man hosting. Thought it'd be better.
I'm calling from the future.
From beyond the grave for this show.
You shouldn't joke about the ghosts.
Oh, goodness gracious.
So
anyway, Chupacabra.
I was honestly surprised to see somebody who claims to be a sensitive or a psychic, but agreeing with your side of the spectrum, like agreeing that maybe most of these are demons, or at least some of them are demons.
Indeed. It's nice to have someone on my side every once in a while. I'm not gonna lie.
Not that there aren't other people with the Christian viewpoint, but there are psychic mediums who would disagree that what we're encountering isn't all demons, it's something else, or as you've encountered, and we said last show, pagans who will argue with you and claim to put spells on you because you're voicing your own opinion. And so it's really refreshing to meet somebody who is from another viewpoint but agrees with the Christian standpoint as well. So I was kind of happy about that.
Me too. Simple as that. Think about it. The things that we talked about today, and regarding to biblical accounts, make sense when you compare them to the things happening today. You know, how many times do we watch like Ghost Adventures, for example, or Ghost Hunters, where they encounter some kind of demonic entity that follows them home and creates all this havoc? I don't know how many times I've heard people like Nick, for example, from Ghost Adventures, Nick Roth, who has been sick on a number of occasions after calling out ghosts, and what's the word I'm looking for when you call out a ghost? Provoking. After provoking a ghost, he becomes physically ill for days. And there's been accounts where these entities, a.k.a. demons, ladies and gentlemen, would follow them home. And it's like the same thing happening today has been happening for the past 10,000 years, according to the scriptures. But no one wants to look at the scriptures because of what it asks us to do as people, in regards to following the commands of God. And that's why most people throw it out the window and say, oh, well, it's just a written book by people, which we could go have a whole show just on that, and I'll argue that point. Written word of God, ladies and gentlemen, written word of God. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I know not everyone agrees with me, but it just makes sense when you look at today's time and that of everything before Christ. It just makes sense.
All right, well, we are getting close to wrapping up, folks. Check us out on Facebook. Check us out on Twitter. We are always announcing who's going to be on the show, what's going to be on the show, as well as different things that we might be giving away. Our Indiegogo campaign that's going on right now, like I said, that is in our chat room. If you want to check that out, we do have had 2 contributors already, so thank you going out to Debbie Skurback and crap, I closed it.
Mess that one up.
Geraldine Kozak. So thank you to both of them for making contributions to our campaign. We do encourage you guys to do that. We're doing this because we want to improve our show for you, our listeners. So please go ahead and check that out. Anything else to add before we're out of here for the evening, sir?
No, just ladies and gentlemen, join us next week when we board the Chupa 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 Chupacabra train. Yeah.
You'll have to make that as a sound effect so I can play it at the beginning of the show. All right, folks. I'm Justin.
And I'm Eric.
And we are Paratruth Radio. See you next week.
Peace.